right. Hey, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited to have a very special guest here on our Street Smart Ventures podcast episode.
Thank you.
Dazmarie Maldonado, thank you so much for being here, as always, again.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here every time. I love Street Smart Ventures, and there's so much work we have to do. So thank you for having me.
And of course, for all those who don't know me, I'm Michael Scanlon, Director of Community and Partnerships for Street Smart Ventures. And we're all just helping everyone really move forward, achieve their goals, their dreams, envision and live a life that makes you happy, full of purpose and joy and wonder and creativity. So I can't think of a better person that embodies those values than Daz Marie. And as a quick side note, if you have not seen this episode, Daz Marie and I recorded an amazing almost 2 hour conversation, really encompassing everything on youth voice, what do young adults need, what's the state of the world. Dazmarie graciously shared a bit about her own stories and experiences. So please, if you've not, checked out that recording, um, you know, it's incredible episode and just so full of wisdom and just everyone should listen to it. So that's I cannot tell anyone what to do in life, but I'm just my highest recommendation is make sure you view it and you pass it along to professionals, educators, other young
Amen.
people. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so on that note, so I know behind the scenes, just so our listeners can know, Daz and I really want to kind of take this time to really almost in a way revisit certain things we talked about back in December, but really our time today is really honing it in on everything employment, and I think we have a lot of things to cover in just about our hour recording today. So I'll do my best as host to make sure you get the most Daz Marie wisdom as possible in our time together. So on that note, Daz, I kind of want to throw it up to you, like really just opening it up. Like, what is on your heart and your mind when it comes to employment right now?
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate all of that. And again, the highest recommendation is that you guys watch that podcast because what's on my heart right now is what we talked about. First, I want to just start with the youth. The young people that are going to be essentially running the world, the generations to come. We're not investing enough, and we all have to take the accountability in our own communities to realize the rift that is currently happening and how we can fill that void, right? So if we're having a youth crisis, especially within employment and gaining opportunities, how can we expect the adults that they're watching to maintain their difficulties within employment? That's truly what's on my heart right now. Unfortunately, the cause and effect and domino effect of where our country is right now. So that is on my heart. And we're going to deep dive into all these subcategories, inform you guys on different statistics, and put you guys in the shoes of people that are actually disconnected, those that are unemployed, those that are employed and overexploited with their work hours and not having a quality of life. So we're going to get into all of it, y'all.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at my little notes over here. They're not actually little. There's a lot of notes. We could take this a bunch of different ways for all, but I almost feel like I kind of want to start you off, Daz, with what do you want to share when it comes to finding a job? I
Mm.
think there's so many ways we can take that. I'm just so curious on, really chunking it out in what's on your heart and mind when it comes to that.
Absolutely. When it comes to finding a job, that is a great start because I think that's where a lot of people don't know where to start. I didn't know where to start, especially as a young person, and even as a young adult right now. I still don't know how to approach getting a job, um, but it can be a very scary thing. And I think that number one, everybody has to start with knocking out the fear, understanding that you're an individual and knowing yourself so that you can correlate what your interests are into the jobs that you're applying for, the jobs that you are seeking, because that's vital. You don't ever want to put yourself in a circumstance where you can't perform to your best of your abilities, or you can't feel comfortable being who you are wherever you are. So I think number one, self discovery, learning your interests, learning what you don't like, learning what you can't handle. And it's okay because everybody has a job. So some of us can't handle hard labor. Some of us are better with administrative work. And then it's vice versa. all the way around with different types of people. So self discovery, especially with your weaknesses and your strengths, understanding that, evaluating the soft and hard skills that you have now. A lot of people don't realize that these life experiences and situations that we endure on the daily basis can build us as perfect employees for these jobs. So understanding that just because you may not have a lot of work experience previously, or you may not have a lot of skills to put on your resume, don't be intimidated by that whatsoever, because there's always going to be a job for you. So again, number one is self-discovery. Two, I would definitely say, if you're in an immediate situation to get a job, take advantage of job fairs. There's so many different community events in every community that we don't really heed to. And those can be face to face opportunities where you get the job right on the spot. And it can accelerate that process and alleviate the anxiety of waiting and checking your email, checking your call log, making sure that you didn't get that call or miss it. So that's something that I really want people to get out there, get out of your house, go to a job fair, meet other people that are, looking for similar jobs than you. You can learn from other people that are in the same circumstances as you. So taking advantage of community resources, especially the American Job Center, or any of your unemployment locations, can help you with the career navigator and get you started in what you want. And lastly, three, I definitely have to say, study the employer. I don't think we do this enough. The employers, they pay us, right? They give us these opportunities, but we're also the employees that make their business flow, that make their business alive. So understanding our worth and evaluating the employer, whether or not we have similar values, whether or not you actually comply with those policies, can also help eliminate completely those different barriers that come in within employment, like discrimination, like not understanding or feeling worthy enough, or somebody telling you that you don't fit the module or you don't fit the position because you don't have these skills or you don't have this accreditation. Those are big keys that could kind of be destructive to our future. So
Mhm.
being real with yourself, understanding your worth, whether or not this employer is for you and whether or not that employer is for you as an employee. So that's where I'll start. That's really the biggest thing that I feel like is in all of these subcategories we're going to go into. These are things
Mhm.
that have been neglected, or these are things that people didn't unfortunately have access to. So that can be a whole nother challenge or hurdle that people experience when coming to find a job.
Mm. I love everything you shared, Des. I kind of want to circle back to a couple things for each of them. Um,
Yes.
I'm all about self discovery, and I think I think you're right. That's almost the foundation for anything, right? Is getting to know yourself, getting to learn about yourself, and it's so interesting. Um, do you have any thoughts on like your own self discovery of you as a young woman, and what have you like have things changed for you in your own self discovery? Is there anything you want to share that like, oh, like what I know now about like learning about myself or like changing things or trying new things? Like I would just appreciate any other thoughts that maybe could help our listeners.
Thank you. Absolutely. I don't mind being vulnerable and sharing some of the experience that I had throughout my self discovery. For those that haven't watched the previous podcast, I'm a 23-year-old entrepreneur from Hartford. So not only that, but I'm an Afro Latina, I'm a Puerto Rican woman. And a lot of spaces, unfortunately, in this world aren't crafted for those of color, or those of the ethnic background. So, number one, I would say learning to be my authentic self and having not to put on a mask just to be deemed professional or successful or qualified enough. That's what I had to start with. Number one, um, understanding that I'm okay and I'm worthy as this job as the person sitting next to me and the person sitting over here. But that starts from within. So that
Mhm.
was something that I had to build through disconnections within the workplace, not being heard, being discriminated, or having people put assumptions over me and having to prove them wrong as a human being, not as a woman, not as a person of an ethnic background, but just as a human being to be respected. So that is a big part of something that I am continuously learning, to know myself, have pride in who I am, and most importantly, know what I can bring to the table despite all of the labels that society puts on me. And really showing that through worth ethic with real results, with real productivity. So that was a very big key that I learned from early employment, and I'm still learning again through different experiences that I'm having. Two, another thing that comes to mind for sure is transportation. I know a lot of people don't talk about this.
Mhm.
Um, but as a young person, and even those that are later on in life, transportation could be a big issue when it comes to employment. If you don't have reliable transportation or you can't be deemed as a reliable employee, that will cause a lot of problems for you. However, on the opposite side of things, a lot of people don't know how expensive it is to get a car nowadays. You know, the difficulties of public transportation when that bus leaves you at the bus stop or is running late and you're running late to work because there's no other way for you. So, understanding that being prompt, planning ahead, time management, and all of the above, just overall being organized will help you with your mental space of feeling like you're doing too much or feeling like things are so far fetched for you. So that was something that I had to learn as a teenager, taking that accountability and not blaming the public transportation system because I knew my reality. So I think that's another thing that I really want to share with you guys. And there's no shame in it whatsoever, but we have to take accountability and plan for the future, plan for that success, plan for how we want to be seen, um, and also accepting ourselves in that. Another thing that also comes to mind is discrimination. This was something that I experienced a lot in the workplace because of lack of training or lack of corporate vocabulary and lexicon, which is something that's built. And again, this goes back into self discovery. With you guys finding a job because you have to understand what job you're applying for.
Mhm.
And I didn't understand that. I went for what I wanted to be. I went for what spaces I wanted to be in, which is all great, should also be considered through the application process. But you also have to take into account the people that you're around. You have to take account of the responsibilities you're taking on and how much that means to everybody else in the workplace. And not that that is an excuse for the discrimination that happened, but a lot of it happened because of those small key details that a lot of people choose to ignore, essentially choose to ignore it. And being yourself, asking the right questions so that you don't have to be in a circumstance where you're being offended or you're being told that you're not worthy enough. Going above and beyond will always work in your favor. Research, asking questions, things like that, and knowing your rights, most importantly, because again, discrimination is not a fun thing that any human deserves. It's not a fun thing to experience. um, but you have to know your rights, because if you don't know how to advocate for yourself, people will walk all over you. And that goes beyond employment. That goes in every aspect of life. People will walk all over you if you don't know your worth or you don't know how to advocate for yourself and your work. So that's a big thing. And that also goes into the policies of your workplace, understanding your employer's values. Because if they don't value you or your community, then you can't expect them to see you as the human you are in their workplace. Um, and that's what's really on my heart when it comes to self-discovery. Those are actually one more thing before I leave you guys. Self-discovery also includes integrity and not taking things personal. This was the hardest thing that I've learned thus far, and I'm still learning not to take things personal, because these are all things that are building us in our character, that are building us in our careers, that are building us for that ultimate goal that we all have at the end. If you don't have pressure applied, how can you get the diamond out of it?
Mhm.
There's a lot of beautiful things that come out of chaos. And that's one of the things, not taking things personal, even through that discrimination experience that I've had, understanding that I am still a woman worthy to work in any other workforce, in any industry, as long as I'm capable, even after an experience like that, and not taking it personal, but taking away things that I can learn and things I can apply to myself to be stronger in the next opportunity or next door I walk into.
Mm. No, you shared so many great things, Des, and I think a couple of those things we'll definitely talk more on in terms of under the umbrella of keeping a job and problem solving. So we'll definitely revisit some of those things you mentioned. Make no mistake
Yes.
on that. But I think what's interesting too, I want to let our listeners know is I think a lot of your discovery process, you know, it's such an investment, right? Because I have my own, discovery journey as we all do. But I think, it makes me so happy hearing you share parts of your story and experiences because those lessons you learned will carry with you your entire life. Like, you can't, like, in my opinion, like, I've never really been a hiring manager or someone who literally has that decision making power to be like, I want this person or not this person. But I can also definitely tell you that, I think a lot of things can be trained, like, like knowledge and like technical things, even soft skills can be improved. Like, no, no, that's absolutely true. But I think not everyone has that innate integrity. Not everyone, can take accountability or responsibility. And I think I've seen a lot of, um, I've kind of witnessed in my own professional and personal circles that it's those core values you hold as like the integrity, responsibility, everything you've mentioned, the not taking things personally. Those are such huge, huge things. I'm just here to like reflect back to you. That is gigantic that you can, as a young woman, come on this podcast and know that and live those values. So, what's coming up for you when I say those things to you right now?
It's truly humbling. It's something that is beautiful to hear, but most importantly, hard to swallow. And if I may speak for those that deal with, different insecurities, us
Mm,
young people, we're learning life. And to hear that is very humbling for a couple of reasons, because sometimes those are the things we have to remind ourselves of, that I am worthy, that I am capable, that I am a good person, and of course, those that have faith, finding your faith and understanding that we're all rooted in some way. um, and what comes to mind when you say those things is the little girl that was looking for those soft skills or how to build a personal brand and learn how to really self discover. I was that girl that didn't really see myself and having a podcast with you, talking to essentially millions of people, whoever can view this podcast and collect the gems from you and I. I never saw myself doing that because I never thought I was worthy enough. And that's a big issue when it comes to people in general. That's why people can't take accountability. That's why people can't be honest because they don't know that they're not doing the right thing. And what comes to mind is Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, after school programs. Those are things that poured into me and rubbed me the wrong way a couple of times, but helped me to build discernment in my own actions. And if people aren't comfortable with being uncomfortable, that truth will never come through to your spirit. And I, again, Michael, it's flattering and it's humble to have somebody say this to me because I'm a young person myself, and there's mistakes that I'm going to make after this podcast, and there's going to be mistakes that I make in the future. But most importantly, understanding that there can be something that comes out of those mistakes is number one. So, to anybody that feels like it's hard to accept kind words of encouragement, words that you should be able to hear and digest. It's okay. It's okay to take a step back and take those words and evaluate them, digest them, and look for those qualities in yourself. It takes that self discovery. It takes hearing that over and over and actually applying it in your everyday character and actions so that you can live in that truth, so you can be that person all the way around. And that's what truly comes to mind. The woman that I'm trying, excuse me, the woman that I am growing into, are those things. So right now I have to find a way to implement that practice daily so that I can be that physical manifestation later on.
mhm. Um, and I don't know if this will make sense or not, but almost like, and and thank you so much for adding on to what I just shared with you, Daz. I also think for me, does it make sense if I mention you talked about how, like, yes, being open to like what I just shared, my compliments to you and like what I
Yeah,
see in you, but also at this on the other side of the coin, so to speak. And you touched on this just a little bit, but there are going to be people in our lives that will not be supportive or not a right opportunity or a fit. So it's also, I think, a good skill to mention. Not everything everyone says to you is the truth, or like taking that, going back to you not taking things personally. I certainly have people that were not the greatest to me, or this or that. That's a whole separate behind the scenes little water cooler chat. But I think it's, just wanted to mention that I think it's maybe partly intuition. I had a podcast with my colleague and friend Allie that's, live on here, and she talked a lot about intuition. I know you talk a lot about intuition, and so there's a good mesh with that. But I think that it's both. I think on some level, you mentioned discernment. There are going to be people who come into your lives who, can uplift you, and who will, whether you realize it or not, help just be that support. But there are going to be people that just don't let whether it's an unsupportive manager or a coworker that's not treating you the best. Like, don't take on their words or actions and make it about you. You know.
absolutely, absolutely. And Michael, I just have to say that you are a perfect example of that as well. And I'm so humbled to be on this podcast with you, having this conversation, because you are truly somebody that has poured into me, supported me. Not only that, but I've watched you do that to so many other people in the time that I've known you. That it's truly encouraging, even when you do, because we're all human, right? So there's been times where I've taken things personally and completely disregarded my overall mission in life, because of what I'm hearing about myself, and unfortunately taking that as a truth, right? And the biggest thing that people don't realize is when they give a certain reaction to something, that's an agreement. So you're absolutely right. Not everything that somebody says is the truth, but it can become the truth if you agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a couple of times that I've come into agreement and set myself back, because of another person's unfortunate limitation to what they thought I could be. And unfortunately, putting that limitation on myself. So, really understanding that wisdom and that intuition of, okay, maybe this wasn't the right decision I should have made, but I knew what my intention was. I knew what
Mm-hmm.
my aim was. And that can be a very big thing. And again, self discovery. You have to
Mm-hmm.
know who you are. You have to know the experiences you come from so that you can navigate yourself through your daily basis of life. It's a foundational thing, big
Mm-hmm.
foundational thing.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to ask you one quick thing before I jump to kind of more of what you shared about getting out there, applying to jobs. But as far as self discovery,
Yes.
that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And do you have any like practical advice and thoughts on what you did for self discovery that really helped you?
Thank you. For those that don't know, I am an aromatherapist and I have my own business called Simmer Down Sensations. This was a big moment for self discovery, understanding what my need was and understanding the mental health battle that I deal with. Um, Self discovery is something that usually comes out of the pain that you're dealing with, your struggle, finding who you are or what's still left of you after what the storm has came in and destroyed, and building that and nurturing it and cuddling it. But specifically to speak, and again answer your question, three big ways that I can think of that have really helped me as far as practices
Mm-hmm.
within my self-discovery is reading. I'm a big reader. I need to read even more than what I do. For those that struggle, audiobooks and YouTube videos and podcasts can be ways that can bring more information and more perspective to your mind to change your perception of where you are. Everything is perception. Somebody could think that their life is the worst of the worst, but until you have that perspective that somebody could be dealing with the same thing or even worse than your circumstance, you won't know how to present that gratitude, right? So, reading self help books have been key to me, especially from authors that I feel like I can potentially be as a human being, somebody that I can look up to, somebody I can aspire to be, or looking at their accomplishments and what they specialize in, and having that same interest. Always make sure that you're reading or consuming something that is relevant to the growth that you want. Um, I know sometimes we can take entertainment and enthusiasm and unfortunately consume it to the point where again we're circling those lies about ourselves, right? So understanding that sometimes it's okay to shut off your TV instead of the show you're watching and read a book, whether that book be a self-help book from a good author, or it could be a book that brings you into spirituality, or a book on self-discovery that can welcome you and give you different steps or give you different doctrines that you can explore and apply to yourself so that you can seek your own answers. And two, another thing that comes to mind is exercise, getting out, looking at the world. Um, Within this beautiful creation that God has created, there's so many things that resemble us. And sometimes when you take that walk, you can look at a tree and that tree could give you inspiration. You can look at a flower and be like, wow, I'm really like this flower growing out of the concrete. Look at this rose that is still rising against its environment. These are different things that can really bring wisdom, love, a self reflection moment to start that process of self discovery, hiking, biking, moving your body and distracting your body from the constant programming that it's in. Waking up, going to work, going to sleep, waking up, going to work, going to sleep. When you break that cycle or you find some way to alleviate and give your soul something different, you find different parts of yourself. You feel different. You're liberated in a different way than what you can expect. And lastly, I bring it back to being an aromatherapist. Something that helped me discover myself was essential oils. I dealt with a lot of anger in high school and anxiety, and I wasn't the person to talk about it. I wasn't the person to write it down. And I sure wasn't the person to go ahead and act like it wasn't happening. No, I wore it on me, unfortunately. And what helped me get out of that was being open to natural remedies. And I'm fortunate enough that it worked for me, using lavender oil for relaxation, using that tangerine and citrus oils for that, rejuvenating, intriguing feeling that you need, or peppermint and eucalyptus when you need that stimulation of focus. Those were things that brought me into a deep rabbit hole of self-care, and I'm grateful for that. But that only came out of the pain and things that I got tired of experiencing in my life. um, but beyond aromatherapy, there is poetry, there is culinary, there is jewelry crafting. There's a lot of different hobbies out there that can teach you about yourself, that can potentially open up a stream of income for you. Hello, entrepreneurs. Self discovery can open up so many doors for you, but you also have to be careful of the doors that it opens and know what doors need to be shut back.
Mhm.
Right. And having that accountability, understanding honesty, and it's okay to have some scars and some things that you don't want to face, but we have to face them because if we don't, then they leak out into our everyday lives. They can affect and project on people that don't deserve it. And you can sell yourself short, and it's okay. Again, even those that have done this, it's I've done it as well. It's okay because there's always going to be opportunities, again, in that self-discovery of realizing, okay, I didn't handle this the right way. I let this get the best of me. How do I get out of this? That is self-discovery. That is honesty. That is intuition, knowing that there needs to be change. So those are things that come to mind that I can share with everybody on ways to really self discover. Books, moving your body, or breaking the cycle or programming that you're in. And third of all, finding a hobby.
Thank you so much, Des. I was just
Yeah.
going to say, Des, following up with what you shared on self discovery, it's so so important. I think that this really is under the umbrella for me of finding a job and preparing for a job because the better you know yourself and who you are and what you stand for and what you want, the stronger you will, I believe, perform on the job and find the best fit for your job. So everything Daz mentioned in terms of reading, you know, like podcasts, like YouTube videos, it's all about learning and discovery. So for those of you who may be listening and like talking about employment, for both of us, right? This is our own way that we both have had experiences where, you know, through this process of taking time to learn about ourselves, it has really benefited our own employment opportunities and just knowing what we want. You know, Daz, you and I have had many conversations and text or on the phone personally where, you know the values and kind of what you want. Like every those threads of what interests you are community, advocacy, helping people, bringing joy to people. And you can do that in so many different ways. You mentioned entrepreneurship, and we'll have another future podcast, by the way, with Daz and Ray, who we also had a separate podcast recording with, who is an amazing, colleague and friend as well, an entrepreneur. So we will deep dive into entrepreneurship, but I'm so glad you did touch on the fact that you're right. A big decision in discovery is at this point, do you want to go after a traditional 9 to 5, so to speak, or are you looking to really venture off on your own in entrepreneurship? That's a great, great point you did mention, Daz. There was something else before my Wi-Fi cut off that I was going to say, but I think I'll leave it at that right now. But I do want to talk about. I'm so grateful you really mentioned a big part of finding a job is really just getting yourself out there. You mentioned, job fairs, American Job Center. And I think to me, what that brings up is you don't have to do this alone. I know it can seem overwhelming at times, or, in our modern society, we can be so tech reliant, which is great in a way, but I don't want anyone to feel like, there's connection and real humans out there. And I think that can make such a big difference. And I know what you touched on with, self-care, self-discovery, that's a key part for me, is having other people in my life who I can just talk with, even if it's just meeting up for a coffee for half an hour or like going for a walk somewhere. It's those same principles that can apply to getting help, whether it's employment, what have you, right? So do you have any other thoughts on um, applying for jobs and what's really either a great experience or what you wish you did differently? Or do you feel like what you shared earlier was is complete for you on that?
That's a really good question. And I think the beautiful thing about the mind is so much can come to it in like this. So I actually have a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about when it comes to ending the conversation on how specifically to find a job. So another thing that comes to mind is we're in this new age of society where technology is taking over. We're losing a lot of human connection. We are losing a lot of human connection. Face to face conversations have so much value in them. Um, not only do they speak to our minds, but they speak to our bodies and our souls. And that sticks with us, that overall in person experience. And if I may speak for some other people, I'm a hands on person. So after a certain amount of online application, I want to see somebody. I want to talk to somebody. I want to go in for an interview because I want to see the results in real time. And the beautiful thing about that is you learn more. You learn more. Unfortunately, the screens and the way that we have been accustomed to convenience when it comes to applying for a job has taken away truly the different things that we can learn when going through the process of obtaining a job. And I mean, before orientation, there's an orientation before that orientation, which is the process of what the responsibilities are, the application process, presenting yourself, resumes, cover letters, all that stuff goes into it. But that is an orientation of yourself. How can I present myself to this person to be worthy? So I would definitely say that I would encourage you guys to look at your community resources, to go to your Boys and Girls Club environments and see if they have different community events going on. And most importantly, I speak to those successful adults Go out in your community and teach a young person how to build a resume, teach a young person how to have a mock interview, teach a young person how they should present themselves in professional vocabulary or dialogue. These are things that unfortunately some households don't fortunately unfortunately don't have, excuse me. So these are big things that are affecting us all over, and we're so quick to judge instead of asking, hey, do you need help with this? Or hey, can I give you a word of advice? Please don't take it personal, but I want to give you this constructive criticism, right? So that you can construct what you're building. um, and that's something that I can honestly say took a while for me. Again, not taking things personal and taking that constructive criticism and applying it where it actually should be applied. Again, taking it with a grain of salt, knowing the truth and who you are. But it's okay. Sometimes that stomach feeling or that burn is good. The burn is good to accept and apply to ourselves. Um, so that's one thing that comes to mind that I want to really emphasize when finding a job. And two, I want to share my experience recently actually changing industries because I'm a youth advocate. I'm 100% for the community and I love doing God's work. Um, but I have taken a pivotal turn as of lately because the circumstance of where our country is. Not only do we have lack of healthcare workers and lack of important professionals out there helping our people and the citizens of the United States, but another thing is, I really wanted to level myself up as a young person. I got the opportunity to educate myself and become a certified nursing assistant and a central sterile processing technician. And that was something super exciting for me, right? This is another way that I can show my compassion, another way where I can show my advocacy, another way that I can be who I am. But most importantly, do the job the right way, and change possibly the industry in the downfall that is currently happening. But unfortunately, I found myself from January to now, and we're in August, applying continuously for these jobs and not being deemed worthy enough for the opportunity because of my lack of experience, because of where I come from, and because of my lack of education and just having these certifications and not having the ability to go have an for my LPN or my registered nurse or become a surgical tech from a sterile processing technician. There's a lot of different things, unfortunately, that are kind of out of our reach. And wow, sometimes throughout the year, I found myself doubting. I found myself questioning whether or not this was the right industry because I'm not getting real results. I was invited to different interviews and meetings with employers, but unfortunately, again, ultimately wasted my time because I wasn't deemed the right candidate for the position. Sometimes I can and discourage us and stop us and slow the process down. But one thing that I can say to you guys is one lesson or gem that has came from this experience of rejection is protection. Understanding that, you know what, maybe I am a worthy employee that truly should be at a different employer that can actually pour back into me, that I can actually climb a ladder at. Sometimes within the doors closing, we automatically take it as rejection and not another chance to just pause or wait for for those that are believers, for God to do his ultimate plan, to move things along, to put people in your lives and make those different divine connections so that you can see, okay, there is something bigger for me. That intuition that we talked about, understanding like, okay, maybe this isn't working. Maybe I could take a different approach. And that's what I had to do after months of being rejected. Understanding like, I am worthy. I am still an employee that can change a company's entire climate by just walking in the door, having that confidence as a person and understanding like it's okay, you know. And sometimes this is a hard one. Sometimes we invest in things that we think we're good at or think that we're going to be good at, and unfortunately, it's not for us. So bringing it back to self-discovery, and that's something I've been spending time with all year long, self-discovering because of this change. Thinking, okay, there's a huge shortage of medical professionals. Let me hone in on that. But am I really a medical professional? Am I really prepared for what I'm going to come into contact with? Am I really prepared or equipped as a human being to really provide that service, not only for the people, again, because they're priority, but to perform as a employee for the employer. So
Hmm.
those are things that we have to understand. And ultimately, maybe God is pushing me back into entrepreneurship and not a traditional 9 to 5. So thank you, Michael, for bringing that up. Sometimes we're so gun hold on what our parents told us to do or what our
Hmm.
parents told us we will be, that it limits us and our soul from what we want to be.
Hmm.
So that's really what I want you guys to I want to leave you guys with, breaking past barriers, understanding that some things that are not working out could be speaking to you. Um, and yeah, that's where I'll leave you guys. Listen, everything
Hmm.
hears and everything talks.
I just want to commend you, Daz. For being so vulnerable and sharing, what has been a tough job seeking experience for you. But I think you're so on the money when it comes to, again, you are aware, and it's very much true that you would be an asset to anyone who hires you. So like we talked about earlier, it's not taking things personally, where in no way, shape, or form does it say you're not good enough. That is on them. We can't, and that's kind of the thing about life, right? We don't know what's going on with that hiring manager or that company. I mean, randomly just making something up, but like you don't know, that company could close in 3 to 6 months. Who knows, right? We just don't always know. And I think it's such a it can be so tough in the moment. I remember too. This is now. I'm looking at the calendar for a sec. It's been. I remember like 11 years ago. I was going through a really tough time where I was like hating, hating my job. I was like miserable, and it took me over 8 months to find something different. And it's like every day, like I knew I needed the money, I needed to keep working. But the heaviness I felt in my body and just mentally, emotionally, everything, it was honestly one of the lowest points of my life. Like as like outside of like family, really personal things, as like an in a career wise, this is my when I was like 24, 23, that was just a really tough time where the dream I thought I was going for in like one way, and what you talked about, Daz, in terms of like your CNA certifications and the processing tech, like I loved what you said, where each opportunity is going to have benefits and things to consider. What you said was, okay, well, if I took this medical job, I'm going to be in contact with whatever, XYZ. When I took this job, I didn't realize I was going to be doing these things. And it's not that, and I understand, work as blessed as I am, every job does have things like I wish every job is a job. Then yes, there's going to be things we always may not want to do. I'm not trying to say there's never going to be that, but when there are those really big things that weigh on us, that in my opinion should not ever really happen. There should be things we can do that feel like, yes, this may be a little tougher or a challenge, but there should always, the best jobs I've had, it's been, I've had support with that. I could talk things through. I had training, or maybe it wasn't going to be a forever thing, and I had an opportunity to move around or so. So I think you brought up so many important things, and I kind of lost my thought, but I was going to add on to that. But I think I there's just every door that closes could open to something better you didn't even realize. And I know I got to meet you in person back in May at our Street Smart Ventures Marketplace event, and that was incredible because I got to you know try your products, your amazing candles, and as you led an amazing workshop for attendees and learning about essential oils and doing hands-on, the amount of creativity. And you like, and the thing is, I had to kind of be the not fun guy in the room because I was the timekeeper. And so we had so many sessions that day where I'm like, oh, like I had to kind of like, I felt so bad, Daz, and I'm like, oh, like I wish we had more time, but like you went around to every little table and you're like, oh, honey, what do you need here? You want the olive oil, you want the safflower oil, you want to mix in this, and it was so
Yeah.
cool. I could see like you had your PowerPoint and you like own that room, and we made a
Thank
lot of
you.
friends that day, a lot of community, and that's what it's all about. And so, do you have any thoughts on you know, kind of what, for those that didn't watch, our other podcasts, do you have any thoughts on entrepreneurship and um, any like from the heart and mind, you know, on if something's not working out in that 9 to 5 world and someone's feeling drawn to, because I think for me, entrepreneurship is meeting a need, it's solving problems, it's bringing your joy and your passion to the world. What's going on for you when I say all that to you?
Wow, a lot is going on. A lot is going on because number one, I just want to acknowledge your experience because I think we don't talk enough about the negative experiences that can create a better world. And sometimes it's almost like how people want a joyful sermon, but not the sermon about correction. And I think that that's where we are right now in the world. We're having so many young people that are in bondage because they are just trying to succeed and lay a foundation for their life that they are putting their mental health and health essentially on the line. So I just want to talk about that because when I was experiencing what I was experiencing through discrimination of my few employers ago, that is exactly how I was feeling. Every time that I couldn't, have an idea respected, or I couldn't really perform in the role that I was hired in, and I continuously got stopped, or I was told to essentially be quiet because my idea or my projection is not where the company wants to go, so it's not valued. And unfortunately, I didn't work for an employer that was sensitive to how you should treat humans. So it was communicated in a very nasty way, and that caused warfare on my body. And for any human being, I think I can speak for anybody. If you're constantly in a state of survival, or feeling like you have to watch your back, or feeling like you have to question your every movement and word you speak, that is something that is going to make your body feel unsettled, which can cause illnesses, diseases, and so many different unnecessary things that can manifest out to, unfortunately, um, something that could have been simply resolved. But sometimes it's not our own doing. It's understanding who we are in the place that is not for us. So I just want to say that when to everybody, if you're experiencing this now, if you have experienced this, or if you feel like you're starting to experience this, that is your intuition speaking to you. This is your body speaking to you, whether it be the employer and not necessarily the industry, or it could be the industry and where you are, or it could simply be the place. And that's probably one thing that a lot of people don't realize. The place of your employment can be hurting you, can be causing more harm than it is pouring back into you financially. And this is something that I want to say personally brought me into entrepreneurship. Me as a high energetic, creative, loving, and open individual, I was in a corporate setting where I thought I was making true change in the community, but that wasn't the actual, um, target of the company. So I was essentially out of my element, not only as who I am as a person and what I bring to the table, but I can't just shut off my mind and who I am and how I think. These are different things that can truly bring a dream into a reality, but I know that I'm not at the right place or at the right employer to actually value this, who can actually hear this and correlate it with something that they're trying to actively do. And granted, just for a bit of context, I was a community programs coordinator at a nonprofit, at a huge facility, and I was doing my job, in fact. And unfortunately, because people didn't understand the population that we were serving, they were understanding the importance and significance of my perspective and what I was saying. That we had to respect these community, people that are coming to us, that are asking us for resources, that are asking us for our programming. And if we're not tailoring it to their needs, then what are we actually doing? But again, sometimes we have to understand that we're going above and beyond for things that really don't care for us, for places that are going to easily replace us. So that's what personally brought me into entrepreneurship, knowing the fire I had inside of me and now not allowing them to put it out because they didn't have a big enough fireplace. And lastly, entrepreneurship is scary. It's not a linear thing. It may not be for everybody because it's not as secure as a nine to five. But what I can tell you as someone that has been trying to do both of the best of both worlds. Um, I've been so connected with myself, despite the difficulties, despite the rejection, despite all these different experiences, always having some sort of craft that I can call mine and that I know can pour back into people really truly fulfills me from those experiences. So again, simmer down sensations was created in hopes to combat the mental health stigma that is currently going on in marginalized communities. We can be in a marginalized community and not realize it, excuse me. And this is beyond ethnicity, color. This can go for classism. This can go for LGBTQ. This can go for so many different type of people that experience oppression. And that's truly why I started aromatherapy, because I knew if it helped me alleviate myself of the anger and the warfare in my body, I knew what it can do for somebody else that's under pressure. You know, here you go, rub some lavender on your temples. Let me make you a roll on keychain to make that more convenient for you in the workplace, or when you're out on the go, or when you're in the midst of a situation that you didn't expect to happen. You know, having those different resources to de stress ourselves are so essential, and this is something I'm taking my own advice on. I'm taking my own practices and applying them in my everyday life as much as I can, because we're all humans and we deserve some way to release. We're not meant or created or crafted in a way to hold on to so much. And that's why things affect us the way they do. Um, and that has truly allowed me to do those things. And again, thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity at the marketplace and meet other people, to hear their needs and see how I can service them, or I can provide them something that our creator has essentially created for us. And you know, I can only speak for myself within my interest and my craft, but I know that there could be somebody else that can have a craft in helping those be liberated from discrimination experiences. Other people can find you know, liberation through a staffing agency that they start, you know, a temp agency. There's so many different forms of entrepreneurship. Never limit yourself. But one thing I can say from entrepreneur to future entrepreneurs: find something you have a passion of, find something you're tired of seeing, find something that infuriates you and create a solution. And that's one thing that I can truly say is continuing me in my craft, that excuse me, that is helping me continue my craft, that is helping me continue and fight as the person that I am, because I know that there's a bigger picture and that I know that this will pay off in the future. So thank you.
1,000,000%, Des. Wow, when you said your fireplace ain't big enough for me, I'm like, that's right. To like fill your spirit, you need like a whole like mile long fireplace, like whoosh, blow it up.
I love you. Yes, and that's right, Michael. Because even in that experience, when you were going through your experience, they probably didn't understand how worthy you are, how talented you were, how careful you were because of your consideration to do your job the right way. And I think again, um, I'm going to leave this with our viewers. Don't allow yourself to be exploited. I know we have ends to meet. I know we're all in the same circumstance and we're all going through different things. Some of us have families, some of us don't. Some of us have higher obligations or different debts to pay that, you know, create that anxiety and that I have to go, I have to go, I have to go. But don't kill yourself getting there. You don't want to be dead when you get to the end mark. You want to be able to experience that. You want to be alive. You want to be like, look at this race I just did. Look, I did all that, you know, and again, I can honestly apply this to myself. So as I'm speaking to you guys, I'm speaking to me. And you know, that's the importance of understanding your worth.
You know, Des, I could, as always, every time I'm, whether it's texting or on the phone, we do our little check ins now and then. Um, and I know coming on here, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. I do want to say, based on, our behind the scenes chat, we've been talking for a little, about, excuse me, a little over 53 minutes. So I want to run it by you. Like,
Mm.
do you what in our maybe in our last 5 to 10 minutes left, is there any, or if you feel complete now and we happy to close it out here, is there anything else kind of, we've talked about the big at the foundations of finding a job, what's the right job, what's, what do I need to learn about myself, what's not the right opportunity, what, you know what's outside of traditional 9 to 5. We talked about so many things. Is there anything that you want to share in in our last few minutes together that you want to bring home to our viewers?
It's a really good question. I'm actually reflecting on again that conversation we had, and I think we hit everything we talked about. Essentially, you did a great job. I have to thank you. And one thing that I do want to leave our viewers with is resources, some resources to reiterate. If I may now, guys, the American Job Center is in every city, every state. Please start the research process. If you are experiencing trouble getting your applications through, if you feel like, okay, I'm not sure if it's my resume at this point, or if I need a cover letter, or I need to approach this in a different way because it's a different industry than I'm used to, those are things that the American Job Center can help you with. The Department of Labor, your community resources. And when I say community resources, I mean those boys and girls clubs. I mean your public libraries. I mean your YMCA. Get out there, talk to people, ask for help. There's nothing wrong with anything that you're going through. We're all going through it. And I think that technology and social media has unfortunately condemned the human experience because we're so caught up in this artificial um, dopamine rush and what is validated through a phone that we forget that we have an entire planet that we were created for, and again, getting out of that box, getting out of that programming will help you understand that there is so much when you walk out of your front door that can help you get to where you need to be. um, and that's one thing that I wanted to really, really reiterate. Talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask your auntie how she got in that job. Don't be afraid to ask your uncle, what did you have to do to get to where you are now? Those are big conversations within human to human connection that can not only give us love, that can combat the anxieties of the workplace, that can combat the insecurities that we deal with within our personal self, but it can most importantly encourage a relationship between you and another individual, but it can give you experiences that you don't have to experience for yourself. You can take somebody else's experience, again, take it with a grain of salt of what applies to you, what resonates with you, what is motivating you the most, and actually do something with it. Um, do something with it, guys. It's okay. We're all going through the same thing right now. We're all under the same umbrella. We're in the same country. Hey, so we got to help one another. We got to bring this country back to a place where we can be in togetherness, truly making it great again the right way, with humility and things like that. So, again, your self help books, again, your self care, your self discovery, understanding who you are and what you're trying to apply for it, and not only what you're trying to apply for right now, where you are in life, but where you want to be at the end of retirement, where you want to bring the next generation that is behind you. You have to think about those things when you go into each and every job because they leave you with something. So, thank you again, Michael. You are amazing. This has been a pleasure. And I highly recommend, I love that you said highly recommends, you guys to watch the previous podcast and the podcast going, even with other guest speakers. These are things that we're talking about things that need to be talked about, things that are deep in your belly that you haven't known how to bring it up. So I pray that we are speaking for those that have no voice. We're speaking for those that don't know how to use their voice and can encourage them to be the voice.
Thank you so much, Daz. No, and I think the world of you as well. And I just thank you for your wisdom, your time, your knowledge. I wish we could keep talking for hours and hours and hours, but again, you've
Yeah.
not heard the last from Daz. So again, just thank you. For our listeners, this will be, we're always hoping to have guests on here who have so much to share. So if you are watching this, hearing this, and you feel like I have a story to share, reach out to me. My email's always, it's on streetsmartventures.com. You'll find our information there, on our social media. But please, like, we want to, if you are listening and you know also have things you want people to learn from or hear about, we're here for you. All right. And on that note, friends, until next time, thanks so much.
Yes. Until next time, take care.